All right, welcome back to the YouTube channel for large-headed people. We're going to be studying a topic this week in the Face Down series that is a little bit different than what we've been studying because it's submitting to God through disobedience. And like that just sounds oxymoronish. And it will be a lesson that will probably challenge you in some ways, where the students will want to challenge you and various things. So we want to make sure that we go through this one and hit some things pretty hard and make sure we're all clear on it. And please, I've already had people ask me questions about this one because they weren't sure about some things. So if you have questions, please give me a holler, and hopefully we can get this all lined out and ready to go before Sunday. But the lesson this week, we're looking at, like I said, submission to God through disobedience to authorities. Now, while that sounds so strange because we've been talking about submission to authorities this whole time, there are some examples in the Bible of where God would approve of disobedience because it was not disobedience to Him, it was disobedience to authorities that were contrary to Him. And so as we look at the lesson this week, the hook portion, we start out with it, and I've got 3 case studies in the back of the lesson. One is of Corrie ten Boom, and if you don't know anything about her story, her family hid Jews during World War II from the Nazis, and you can read through that case study there. And primarily what I want you to use these for this week is just kind of discussion points to get into the lesson and get started, and have them begin thinking about what equates to obedience that is good in God's sight, or disobedience that is good in God's sight, or disobedience that is bad in God's sight. Because obviously we're going to look at Scripture today, and we're going to see some cases where disobedience was viewed as okay in His sight, but not in every case is that true. And I would say the majority of cases, disobedience is always going to be wrong, but we don't want to mislead anybody by saying that in every situation, God calls for obedience. Obviously, if somebody broke in to your home and was threatening your life or the life of your children, there are some things, you're not supposed to you're not called to just sit there and suffer and take it. You're called to rise up and whatever you need to do to defend your home, and so while that might be disobedient, and what I'm thinking there is if somebody broke into your home and has a potential of taking your life, if you had to take that person's life to prevent your life from being taken or the lives of your children from being taken, obviously that's disobedience for the law, and all of those things. Well, that's not a good example. Anyway, we're gonna get into this, but I just want to go over Corrie ten Boom, Tiananmen Square, and Rosa Parks. So you can choose one or all 3 of these to go over. I think it'd be good to at least choose 2 of them to go over to say which ones are proper times of disobedience and which ones are not. And so I'm going to go over that with you now. Okay, whenever we're talking about Corrie ten Boom, we're talking about a lady and her family that stood up against the oppression and actually the genocide of the Jewish people in Nazi Germany, and I believe she was actually in the Netherlands. But anyway, it was still oppression by the Nazis at this point, and this was an evil form of government. So she was right in standing up and protecting those people from being killed, from being put in concentration camps, and opposing this genocide, because that is obviously against the Bible, that people would just be randomly put to death based on their race or their their national origin, and she probably knew that this was God's chosen people, and at that point she had a decision to make. Am I going to obey what this governing authority tells me to do and give up these people, knowing that they would go to their death, or am I going to try to protect them, even if it means breaking the law? Um, in this case, she broke the law, and she ended up suffering for it. But at the same time, I believe this was an act of disobedience to the governing authorities that was justified, um, based on the fact that they were just it was genocide, and those people would be put to death if they did not um, if she did not protect them. So I believe that one is justified. Tiananmen Square, however, as you read through it, most of you all will remember that back in the late 80s, whenever that occurred. I can still remember watching the news and seeing that happen, and the person standing in front of the tank trying to keep that tank from progressing down the streets of Beijing. And as you read through this, now obviously communist China um, had been moving to socialism, but what these people were fighting for was freedom of speech, and let me see what else they were fighting for: freedom of speech and economic reform. And so, in this case, the reason I don't think this disobedience was justified, from a biblical sense, was because um, there was not a threat to these people's lives. Um, would it be hard to live in China in that rule and that regime? Yeah. Is it hard to live in China now under their rule and regime? I believe it is. But one of the things that I can see here, that where it took a wrong turn, was it said in several of the cities, um, there was violence, looting and rioting broke out. So these people, some of these people at least, were not just standing up for freedom, but they were taking an opportunity for personal gain, um, by theft and rioting, where I don't think those things are justified by the Bible. In rioting, just mass hysteria and mass chaos, many innocent people are going to be hurt in the process of that, whether it's through physical harm or through loss of property or whatever. Those people are going to be hurt, and I don't think that we are justified in just rising up against authority, although they were in a sense being oppressed. Whenever you go to looting and things like that, um, that was not an act of disobedience, in order to help to help a certain group of people. There was no justice in looting. Um, in fact, they were creating more injustice whenever they were doing that kind of thing. Now, was it unjust for the Chinese army to roll through the streets of Beijing and randomly shoot people down? Yeah, of course. But that, whether it was right or not, was in reaction to the rioting and the looting that had happened in other places. And so, I don't view this as the same situation as a Corrie ten Boom, or either the other one that we're going to talk about, which is Rosa Parks. Um, this one, uh, I had a question on, because there was a question: is how was Rosa Parks' disobedience justified? So let's go into depth a little bit more on this one.